She looked me in the eye and said, "From now on, I decide when we spend time together. Stop bothering me." It hit like a slow bullet, quiet, but fatal. That night I stopped calling, stopped explaining. I let the silence spread inch by inch like frost crawling across a window. 2 weeks later, she walked into my office, face pale, hands trembling, pretending she hadn't burned the bridge and then missed the smoke. I didn't stand up. I didn't shout. I just slid a folder across the desk. "You made the rules," I said. "I'm just following them." The look on her face said she finally understood what silence can do. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar, it whispers. And if you've ever chosen silence over chaos, stick around. This story isn't over yet. Subscribe, follow, and let the quiet speak. Morning in the suburbs sounds like forgiveness. Sprinklers ticking across wet grass, a dog barking somewhere far away, the hum of a world that doesn't care what broke inside you. I pour coffee the same way I always have. 2 sugars, no talk. The house hums back, hollow but polite. The ring sits on the table, gold catching a slice of light through the blinds. It looks heavier than it used to. I spin it once, slow, metal whispering against wood. A small sound, but it fills the room. I remember her leaning against me on a winter morning, whispering that I made her feel safe. Funny how people use safety like a promise until they find a newer thrill. Back then, home was her breath on my neck. Now it's drywall and quiet air. The coffee cools, the silence doesn't. I breathe, steady, no texts, no calls, no explanations. Some men shout to feel in control. I've learned control lives in the pause. The phone lights up across the counter, face down, buzzing against the wood. I don't move. The sound fades. The morning stays quiet. Her phone is always upside down, screened to the table like it's hiding something sacred. A new perfume lingers when she walks by, citrus and nerves. "It's just a work gift," she says, smiling too easily. At midnight, I hear her laugh under the dim light of the hallway, her face glowing blue from that little screen. "Just a friend from work," she adds when I ask. The word "just" does a lot of heavy lifting these days. I start seeing the gaps, texts that vanish, calls declined, her smile turning off when she catches me watching. She acts like a stranger rehearsing kindness. I let her. Sometimes truth shows itself better when you don't chase it. At dinner, the phone vibrates once, steak cooling, wine untouched. She freezes. I keep chewing. That vibration slices the silence clean in half. I don't ask who it is. I just taste the quiet, and for the first time, it tastes like truth. The next day, she spoke in therapy words, clean, polished, practiced. "I need boundaries. I need space." She said it like a diagnosis, like the cure was my absence. I kept my voice even. I told her I'd booked couples therapy for Thursday 6 p.m., 2 weeks in a row. She nodded without hearing and said, "I need to find myself." Find herself where? In a room I wasn't allowed to enter? In a life that didn't have my name on the mailbox? I tried to believe in the gentle version of this, grown-ups taking a breath, clearing the air, giving each other room. But the timing was too neat. Space landed right when the laughing started at midnight. Boundaries showed up the same week her phone learned to sleep face down. I didn't argue. Arguments give cover. Silence removes it. So I waited. Thursday came dressed as hope and left as weather. No car in the driveway at 5:40. No footsteps at 5:55. I sat with my keys in my hand until the second hand reached the top of the hour. Then I set them down. Later, the email arrived. "Appointment canceled. Patient no-show. Please note the fee." I read it twice, once for the words and once for the truth inside them. "Boundaries," she said. "Space," she said. Funny how people rename distance and try to sell it as healing. I closed the laptop. The room felt bigger and somehow emptier. The kind of empty that doesn't echo. The kind that answers questions you were afraid to ask. Rain wrapped the neighborhood in a soft hiss, streetlights floating in puddles like coins. The kitchen window turned into a mirror, thin as a lie. I stood there with the lights off, coffee gone cold beside the sink, watching the glass watch me back. Headlights slid across the driveway. A parked car idled at the curb, wipers ticking like a bad heartbeat. I wasn't looking for proof. Proof found me. In the reflective pane, two faces leaned into each other, her mouth on someone else's, their silhouettes stitched together by rain. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't step outside. I didn't knock on the glass like a man begging for the life he already lost. The kiss ended. Tail lights smeared red across the street and then thinned into distance. The house settled. The rain kept talking to the gutters like nothing was wrong. Inside my chest, something should have shattered. It didn't. The break I expected never came. Instead, everything went still, edges drawing hard lines where soft ones used to live. My heart didn't break. It crystallized. Clarity isn't warm. It doesn't hug you or promise better days. Clarity is a cold room with the windows open, letting out the last of the fog. It lets you see the edges of things, the border between hope and denial, the line where a home turns back into a structure. I rinsed the cup. I dried it. I set it down. The mirror turned back into a window. And the night, finally, told the truth. Morning came in plain colors. I cracked 2 eggs, slid them into a pan, butter hissing like a secret. I set her plate down the way I always had, toast straight, fork on the right, nothing dramatic. I didn't ask how she slept. I didn't scan her face for clues. I didn't sigh. I didn't offer a single lifeline for a conversation she'd already drowned. We ate to the rhythm of small sounds, knife on ceramic, the quiet thud of a glass on wood, the low hum of the fridge holding its breath. She kept waiting for the question, waiting for the trial, waiting for me to give her something she could push against. I gave her nothing. Space, the real kind. I salted my eggs and tasted how different the same breakfast can be when you finally stop needing it to fix anything. Across the table, she adjusted her napkin, twice, then a third time. She started a sentence that went nowhere. She let it die in her throat. I sipped coffee. The cup was warm. My hands were steady. There's a power that lives in restraint. Men learn it late or not at all. I let the quiet do the talking. It said everything. Her eyes flickered, left, right, down, like someone searching for a staircase in a dark room. The silence didn't break. It settled. It chose sides. When I stood, the chair didn't scrape. I rinsed my plate, set it in the rack, and walked past her phone lying face down on the counter. Behind me, the room held its breath, and I went to my desk. I opened the laptop like a safe I already knew the combination to. Joint accounts, savings, the cards that carry 2 names but 1 burden. Numbers don't lie, they just wait. I scrolled the last 90 days. Auto transfers, insurance premiums, streaming, cloud storage, ordinary life, priced monthly. Then the outliers, a weekend Airbnb 2 towns over, a steakhouse that never needed a reservation for one, tickets to a concert I never heard about. Nothing screaming, just a trail that didn't fit the house we supposedly lived in. I flagged the odd charges and moved on. Utilities, steady, mortgage, clean. I adjusted the routing on the savings, separating what needed to be protected from what could stay where it was. I canceled the duplicate subscriptions that snuck in when we stopped watching the same shows. A small economy of truth. I checked the credit cards, the permissions, the devices signed in. The language of modern life is access. Who gets in? Who stays in? Who leaves footprints? I changed 2 passwords. I tightened alerts. I trimmed the list of recurring donations we never discussed. Then I opened the tab I had avoided for a week. The authorized users. Her name sat there, polite, historical, undeserved. My finger hovered. Not revenge. Policy. Remove. The word sat there in gray, waiting for a man to decide what he stands for. I clicked. Remove authorized user. The confirmation popped up like a clean diagnosis. Done. No speech. No storm. Just the quiet rhythm of order returning to a system that had drifted. I closed the laptop. The house sounded different. Lighter by ounces. Heavier by fact. I picked up a pen and wrote a date on the inside cover of my planner. A line was drawn. Paul called that Friday. He wanted to grab a beer, talk baseball, forget about the rest. I told him I was good. You good? He asked. I'm orderly, I said. He paused, let the words settle. That's the thing about men our age. We don't need to explain. You just know when a guy's holding himself together by rules instead of hope. We sat in silence on the phone for a beat. then drifted into small talk. Stats, scores, weather. Nothing that asked for emotion. Nothing that cost pride. He mentioned his ex once, how she said his calm was emotionally unavailable. We both laughed, quiet laughs, the kind that don't reach the surface. Men like us learned early, staying calm isn't absence, it's survival. I told him I was staying in. Got some things to sort, I said. Good for you, man, he replied. Better clean than dramatic. I hung up, wiped down the counter, straightened the stack of mail. There's a piece in simple order. Objects lined up, surfaces clear. When life turns unpredictable, symmetry starts to feel like a prayer. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Paul again. Just one line. Proud of you for staying calm. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. That's our language. Short, direct, no applause. I looked around the house, the quiet still holding. Things were where they should be, at least for now. Control isn't about winning. It's about cleaning up without anyone noticing you're bleeding. The next morning I opened the spreadsheet. Nothing fancy. Columns, dates, amounts, truth written in numbers. A weekend Airbnb booked under her account. 2 steakhouse dinners. Same total each time. 2 entrees, 2 drinks. Parking receipts from downtown. Hotel Wi-Fi charges on a night she swore she was working late. Nothing screamed betrayal. It whispered it. I took screenshots, labeled each file with the calm precision of a man logging weather patterns. No anger, just data. Each click another degree of distance. I made a folder called Documentation. Inside it, subfolders, bank, texts, photos. No commentary, no accusation. Just facts that would speak when needed. I didn't share them with friends, not even with Paul. Men talk big, but most wouldn't know what to do with the silence that follows a truth like this. I opened an email draft to the lawyer whose card I'd been ignoring. Attached 3 files. Wrote only 1 sentence. For your review. Then I didn't send it. Yet. Instead, I closed the laptop and looked out the window. The world outside was calm, ordinary. Lawnmowers, distant traffic, a neighbor walking his dog. I reopened the folder one last time, checked every file, made sure it was clean. No rage, no noise, just order. Then I renamed it. Documentation, clean. The sound of that folder locking felt final, like closing a door with quiet hands. Truth doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be filed. Sundays used to have a script. I'd grab a bouquet from the corner stand. Nothing fancy, just something bright to say, we still choose this. I stopped. The vase in the kitchen sat clean and empty, a glass throat waiting for a voice I didn't plan to give it. I used to text home soon at every red light, little breadcrumbs to say I was thinking of her. I stopped that too. The drive became quiet. No updates, no promises, just road and radio. I quit making reservations at the place with the booth in the back where the lights were kind. The host knew my name. He won't need it anymore. I stopped leaving the porch light on like a lighthouse for late nights and wandering moods. The bulb glowed for no one, and I let it rest. Habits aren't just actions. They're small prayers. When the faith dies, the ritual is just movement. I let the rituals go. The house felt different, less staged, more honest. The sink held only what I used. The couch remembered only my shape. I walked to the switch by the front door and touched it like a farewell. Click. The porch fell into a soft dark, the kind that doesn't threaten, the kind that allows things to end without spectacle. Inside, the quiet felt earned. I stood there a moment, not mourning, not celebrating, just recognizing a line I had finally crossed. The phone lit once in the hall. I didn't pick it up. The dark outside didn't argue. It just held. Her message blinked at midnight. Space, Ethan. 2 words delivered like a treatment plan. No hello, no softness. Just a prescription for distance she'd already taken. I stared at the screen and typed slow. Space isn't a way out. I erased it, wrote it again, sent it. The dots danced, disappeared, came back. You're punishing me, she wrote. I felt nothing rise in me, no storm, no speech. I'm protecting me, I answered. The words didn't feel angry. They felt like measuring tape, edges, lengths, limits. She tried the next handle. You're overreacting. I watched that sentence sit there, thin as paper, and didn't lean on it. Overreacting is what people call you when your boundary stops their convenience. I scrolled up to older messages, photos of breakfasts, vacation plans, private jokes that aged badly. Funny how a thread can hold a marriage together until it doesn't. The cursor blinked. I didn't add more. I didn't explain the audit, the spreadsheet, the folder named documentation, clean. She didn't deserve my process. She only earned my conclusion. The house was quiet enough to hear my own breath. I realized I wasn't holding it anymore. I muted the thread. Then I closed the app. The phone turned black and stayed that way, a dark square reflecting my face back at me like a mirror that refuses to lie. "I'm protecting me" kept echoing, not loud, just steady. Like a heartbeat you finally hear because the noise is gone. Some walls keep people out. Some walls keep you whole. I chose mine. Everywhere I looked, men my age were starting over. At the coffee shop near the office, I'd see familiar faces. Wedding rings gone, smiles rehearsed, voices too light for the weight they carried. They talked about finding themselves, booking hiking trips, buying motorcycles, growing beards they should have outgrown decades ago. Someone once called it gray divorce, as if turning 50 turned heartbreak into a demographic. The news ran stats about how long marriages last now, about self-discovery and second youth. People clapped for the courage to walk away. I didn't want a second youth. I wanted my first peace. The barista asked if I wanted the usual. I nodded. Outside, the world kept spinning on its second chances. I just wanted stillness, the kind that doesn't need a new name or a new partner to feel whole. Driving home, traffic crawled past billboards advertising dating apps for grown connections. The radio played soft jazz until a station break cut in with a weather report and court updates. A voice said, "Delays expected today at the county family court due to heavy caseload." Family court. Two words that sound like they should fix something but never do. The light turned green. I didn't rush. Every man I knew seemed to be sprinting towards something. Freedom, distraction, validation. I stayed in my lane, quiet, letting them pass. The road home felt longer that night, but cleaner somehow, like it was being measured for the first time in miles that finally belonged to me. I made the appointment on a Tuesday, 4:00 p.m., Thursday, notary office downtown. No drama, just ink and timing. I set 2 reminders, one for the morning, one an hour before. The calendar notification looked harmless, a block of time, a digital shrug. But the truth sat under it. Closure needs structure, even when the heart doesn't. I gathered everything into one neat folder: statements, property division drafts, a checklist marked in blue ink. No loose edges, no annotations that sound like hope. I placed the pen inside the folder, parallel to the paperclip. Old engineer habits, lines, order, control. When I zipped the briefcase, the sound felt like punctuation. Not an ending. A seal. The alarm went off 48 hours early, a soft buzz under the hum of my desk fan. I could have snoozed it, but I didn't. I let it ring once, long enough to remind me that deadlines aren't just dates. They're decisions you've already made. 2 days left. Outside the window, the city kept its rhythm. Workers crossing streets, kids with backpacks, nobody aware that one man in an upstairs office was signing the quietest rebellion of his life. I didn't hate her. I didn't even blame her. Hate needs heat. I'd gone cold. I closed the planner and looked at the clock again. Thursday, 4:00 p.m. It glowed steady on the screen. Orderly, simple, precise. That's how endings should look when you finally stop trying to save what was never yours to keep. I drove past the cafe where we used to meet on Saturdays, the one with chipped mugs and music that never changed. The same table by the window was empty. 2 chairs still facing each other, still pretending to wait. For a second, I felt the muscle memory of turning right, parking under the same tree, walking in like nothing had shifted. But something inside me stayed still. The blinker never clicked. My hands didn't move. The light turned green. I drove straight ahead. Some choices don't make noise. They don't need speeches or closure. They just sit there, clean and final, like a door you never knock on again. In the rearview mirror, the cafe got smaller until it wasn't part of the story anymore. The past doesn't chase you, it waits quietly, hoping you'll turn around. I didn't. The air through the open window was sharp, dry, honest. No perfume, no lies dressed as laughter, just the sound of tires on asphalt and a man keeping his promise to himself. It wasn't victory, it wasn't loss. It was gravity, simple, inevitable, exact. The next stoplight caught me staring at nothing in particular. I realized how light my shoulders felt, as if a memory had unhooked itself and dropped off somewhere between that cafe and the next intersection. Sometimes peace isn't found in what you revisit. It's in what you pass by. Work was the only thing that still made sense. Blueprints don't lie. Measurements don't shift when emotions do. The lines on the screen stayed where I left them, straight, loyal, obedient. I traced every detail of the new project like a man checking his pulse. Stress calculations, foundation loads, revisions in red ink. Precision gave me something feelings never could. Certainty. My boss leaned over my shoulder, nodding. "Solid," he said. One word. Enough. I nodded back. Yes. In those quiet hours, I realized why I loved the math of it all. Numbers don't gaslight you. They don't ask for space. They don't wake up one morning and decide they need to find themselves. They just hold or they fail. No pretense, no middle ground. I worked late, not to escape but to rebuild. Each correction, each line of code, each approved draft became a small repair inside me. Outside, the city dimmed into evening. The glow of the monitor replaced what used to be her voice in the background. When I sent the final file before the deadline, the confirmation ping sounded like balance being restored. It wasn't happiness, but it was control, measured, quiet, earned. I leaned back, exhaled, and looked at the blueprint once more. Every structure needs reinforcement after it cracks. Some just learn to build from the silence up. It started with good intentions. Midnight, screen glow, coffee gone bitter. I opened a blank email and poured the version of me that still believed in fixing things. I wrote about love that wasn't naive, about exhaustion that wasn't surrender. I told her I still wanted to understand where we cracked, to trace the fault lines like an engineer studying a bridge that gave out. The words came easy at first, too easy. Regret has good rhythm when no one's listening. I read it twice, every line pretending to be closure. Then I saw what it really was. A negotiation disguised as honesty. A man begging quietly for something that had already made up its mind. I hovered over send, but didn't click. The longer I stared, the smaller the words became. I saved it as a draft, read it again an hour later, deleted half, read it again, deleted the rest. In the file directory, a lonely folder blinked on the screen. I renamed it in all caps, "Do not send." There was power in that, quiet, clean power. Clean. Every sentence I erased felt like reclaiming territory. I wasn't withholding forgiveness, I was just refusing to donate my dignity again. I shut the laptop. The screen went black, reflecting me back at myself. For the first time in months, I didn't want to explain anything to anyone. The night didn't answer. It didn't need to. Some messages heal better when they're never read. The invites started disappearing. The group chat slowed down until it flatlined. No more casual jokes, no more weekend plans. Everyone suddenly discovered the art of being neutral. Neutral means they keep her on Instagram and me in silence. I didn't blame them. Divorce has blast radius, and no one wants the smoke. Paul still texted now and then. A quick, "You good?" followed by a meme that didn't land. I replied with a thumbs up. Men don't say much, but we understand the subtext. I'm still here, just not okay enough to talk about it. The rest of them vanished into politeness. It's strange how friendship can dissolve without argument. Just timing, hesitation, the quiet choice not to choose. Saturday came with clear skies and no plans. There'd been a barbecue every year at Tom's place. The invite never showed this time. I went to the store anyway, bought a small bag of charcoal, a pack of ribs, 1 beer instead of 6. Set up in the backyard like it was a ritual worth keeping. The first flame caught quick, licking the edge of the briquettes. Smoke curled upward, lonely but alive. I flipped the meat, listened to the crackle. There's something about cooking for yourself that feels like drawing a border. No guests, no audience, just proof that you're still capable of warmth, even when it's only for you. I sat on the porch, plate in hand, and ate slow. No music, no chatter, just the sound of my own knife and fork keeping time. She showed up at the house on a Wednesday like nothing had burned down. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her voice trying to sound casual, like the line had weight it didn't deserve. "Perfect," I said. One word. Clean. She blinked like she'd been waiting for a different version of me. The fixer. The man who'd argue, comfort, plead. That man had clocked out. She cooked dinner. Something familiar. The kind of meal that used to mean we're okay. Garlic, butter, the soft clatter of pans filling the silence. When she placed my plate down, she smiled too hard. It cracked around the edges. We ate without rhythm. Her fork paused mid-air, her laugh arriving half a second too late. I didn't ask about her day, didn't fill in the gaps. Gaps were earned. When I finished, I stood up and took the dishes to the sink. She started to say something, stopped. The silence was heavy, metallic. It didn't float, it pressed down. I washed each plate slow, water hissing against porcelain. She watched me, waiting for an explosion that never came. I dried my hands. The sound of the towel was louder than her breathing. Then it happened. Small, accidental, sharp. Her spoon slipped from the counter, hit the tile, and the clang echoed through the whole house like a verdict. We both looked down, neither of us moving. Some endings don't need words. Just a sound to mark the distance between what broke and what finally stayed still. That night I went to my desk. The paperwork waited. Neat stacks, color-coded tabs, the anatomy of an ending. Blue for assets, red for debt, yellow for evidence. Fair. That's what the sticky note said in the corner of the first folder. Not revenge, not victory, just balance. I opened each document one last time. Checked every figure, every signature. No rage, no slant, no noise. Clean math for a messy story. It's strange how administrative tasks can feel sacred when they're about closure. I wasn't organizing papers. I was rebuilding control molecule by molecule. The law doesn't care who hurt who. It just counts. I could live with that. Numbers don't argue. I placed each page into the briefcase, aligning corners, pressing down on the clasp until it clicked. That sound, the quiet precision of things locking into place, hit deeper than any apology ever could. I sat back, took one breath, slow and deliberate. In my head, a rubber stamp dropped down. Prepared. Not done. Not healed. Just ready. I closed the case, wiped the desk clean, turned off the lamp. The room went dim, but it wasn't dark. When you live long enough, you learn there's a peace in structure, a calm that lives where chaos used to. I stood in that order for a moment, steady, knowing this time I wasn't building a case. I was building myself. The clock flipped to 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes shy of tomorrow. I sat in the kitchen, the fridge humming like a tired machine keeping time. The house was dark except for the thin stripe of light under the back door. Her perfume still lived in the curtains, faint but stubborn. That same scent that used to mean home now just smelled like unfinished business. I sat there breathing it in until it felt dishonest. Then I stood up and opened the window. The cold came in like a truth that doesn't need explaining. The curtain lifted, wavered, and for the first time in months the air felt clean. Outside, the street was asleep, porch lights off, lawns silver under the moon. It was the kind of quiet that invites decisions. I leaned against the counter, staring at the folder sitting on the table. Everything was ready. Signatures, copies, the pen waiting on top like a gavel. Nothing dramatic, no tears, just order. I reached out and brushed the fabric of the curtain again. The scent was fading, molecule by molecule, dissolving into the chill. Funny how you can smell the exact moment something stops belonging to you. I closed the window halfway, enough to keep the air moving but not enough to let the cold win. The clock hit midnight. The day of endings had arrived, and it felt lighter than I'd expected. The alarm buzzed soft at 6. I was already awake. The house looked different in the morning light, emptier, honest. I pressed my shirt, the blue one, the one that never tries too hard, buttoned it slow. The knot of the tie sat neat and deliberate. The ring waited on the dresser. I held it for a second, then slipped it into my pocket. Not as a memory, not as guilt, just weight. Metal remembering skin. I packed the briefcase, folder, pen, keys. Checked the list twice, everything where it should be. The order of it all steadied me more than coffee ever could. In the mirror, I caught my reflection and nodded once. No speech, no pep talk, just acknowledgement. A man showing up for himself. The garage door hummed open, flooding the room with white light. The cold air smelled like possibility, like a page turned without drama. I stepped out, feeling the air press against my face, sharp, real. Behind me, the house stayed silent. Ahead, the day waited, indifferent but clear. I pulled the door shut, the click small but final, and walked toward the car. Some mornings aren't about hope. They're about follow-through. I turned the key. The engine caught. The driveway opened like a runway. Light spilled in, and I drove. The fifth floor always smelled the same: coffee, toner, and ambition gone stale. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, steady, unforgiving. The carpet swallowed footsteps the way time swallows intention, quietly, without ceremony. I walked past the cubicles, nodding at the few early risers, faces half buried in screens. To them, it was another Thursday. To me, it was the day everything clicked shut. My desk was clean, unnaturally so. Wires coiled perfectly, papers squared to the edge, like a surgical table waiting for the first incision. I set the briefcase down, slid the folder out, lined up the pen parallel to the pad. For a second, I let myself breathe in the stillness. The hum of the HVAC, the low whir of a copier somewhere down the hall, it all sounded like routine, normalcy, but inside, it felt like the seconds before a verdict. The folder waited open, documents crisp, untouched since last night. The pen felt heavier than it should have, like it knew what it was about to confirm. I rolled it between my fingers once, steadying the pulse that had no reason to race. Then came the sound, soft, final, precise. Click. The pen's cap locked into place, echoing faintly in the quiet office. That one sound felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. No music, no drama, just the mechanical certainty of beginnings disguised as endings. I exhaled once, long and slow, the kind of breath that doesn't calm you, it clears you. I heard her before I saw her, the hesitant shuffle of heels against carpet. When I looked up, she was standing in the doorway, pale, hands shaking slightly, holding a purse like it might protect her from the truth. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice carried that old mix of guilt and command, the tone people use when they've already rehearsed your forgiveness. I didn't stand. "You shouldn't be here," I said. She took half a step in. The air changed temperature. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence between us. Cold, mechanical, neutral. She looked around my office like it might explain something. The clean desk. The folder open but not yet signed. Her eyes caught the pen beside it. "Ethan, please." That word used to have gravity. Now it just hung there, light and disposable. I leaned back in my chair, every movement slow, deliberate. Not out of anger, out of control. Men like me don't raise our voices anymore. We just stop lowering our standards. She waited for me to break the silence. I didn't. Silence is a mirror, and guilt always hates what it reflects. Her shoulders dropped, as if the quiet itself had weight. I kept my hands folded on the desk, my pulse steady, my gaze fixed. For years, she'd known how to pull emotion out of me. Today, I gave her nothing. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is not move, and so I didn't. The hallway light flickered once, and the guard from reception appeared at the door. Big guy, kind face, used to seeing office drama but never sure when to step in. He looked from me to her and back again. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice low, polite. I didn't look at him. "We'll be 5 minutes." He nodded, lingered a second longer, then walked off slow, radio crackling behind him. 5 minutes. That's all it was supposed to take. Just enough time to say what never needed saying. But once you name time, it starts working against you. I could feel it ticking through the silence, every second heavier than the last. She shifted on her heels, swallowed hard. The sound carried. I glanced at my watch, the same one she'd given me years ago. The hands met at 12. Her voice tried to restart. "Ethan." I lifted a finger just slightly, not to silence her, but to stop the flood. 5 minutes, I said, finally meeting her eyes. That's all this deserves. Her face twitched like she'd been slapped by something invisible. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. There's a kind of countdown that doesn't use numbers. It just waits for dignity to finish its turn. She bit her lip, looked down. I turned the folder a quarter inch, aligning the edge with the desk. Some men yell to reclaim control. Others just manage time. 5 minutes. That was mercy, and she knew it. She took a deep breath like she was about to read from a script. "My therapist said I need space," she began. The words came smooth, professional, practiced. Therapy talk, dressed up like accountability. I leaned back slightly, not angry, just tired. Boundaries aren't exit ramps you build after you've already left. It landed between us, clean and heavy, like a stone dropped into still water. She blinked, lips parting but no sound following. "I'm not trying to hurt you," she said. I nodded once. "You just don't want to feel guilty for it." Her eyes darted toward the window, as if air could save her. The fluorescent light flattened everything, her tone, her face, the illusion of innocence. "You always twist my words," she tried again. "No," I said. "I just listened to them all the way through." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was diagnostic. It told the truth she'd been avoiding. Space was never for healing. It was for rehearsing life without me. I turned the folder slightly, a calm movement, deliberate. Not to threaten, to remind her that this conversation had an endpoint, written and notarized. Her shoulders caved a little. The quiet grew sharp, mechanical. The office clock ticked once, loud as a verdict. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Sometimes the most painful sound in a room isn't shouting. It's the echo of logic landing where denial used to live. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I could tell she finally heard me. Her phone vibrated against the edge of my desk. Once, twice. The screen flashed. No caller ID. She froze. Her fingers hovered, unsure whether to silence it or confess to it. I didn't look at her. I looked at the papers instead. Numbers, dates, proof that didn't need words. The vibration filled the space like a heartbeat that didn't belong to either of us. The fluorescent hum above seemed to fade, the sound of that phone taking up everything. She finally pressed the button. The ringing stopped. The silence that followed hit harder than the sound itself. The air went dense, metallic, a pause that made even breathing feel like an interruption. I kept my eyes on the documents, pretending to read, knowing full well she was watching my face for reaction that would never come. Her hand dropped to her lap, trembling. I could hear her swallow, see her shoulders tighten, guilt searching for a place to hide. "Wrong number," she whispered, almost to herself. "Sure," I said quietly, still not looking up. The hum of the air conditioner filled the gap again, steady and cold, like it had been waiting its turn. That's when I realized silence isn't just absence, it's containment. You hold everything you could say and decide none of it deserves the air. The call was gone. The quiet stayed. I slid the paper toward her. Bank statements, clean columns, black ink. My hand didn't shake. "Airbnb," I said. "Weekend of March 10th. Her jaw tightened. I pointed again. "Concert tickets. 2 seats. No response. "Steakhouse," I added, eyes still on the page. "For 2. I'm not asking why. I'm clarifying how." That line landed like a hammer dressed as a sentence. Calm, factual, unnegotiable. Her lips parted, then shut again. The language of denial ran out of vocabulary. I turned the page. Asset division, house, accounts, vehicles. The pen rested along the margin, perfectly parallel to the printed line. The sound of the page turning felt surgical, clean cut. I didn't look for emotion anymore. Emotion belonged to a phase I'd already filed under obsolete. She whispered my name once. Ethan. Soft, shaky, almost kind. But kindness at this stage was just residue. Her voice trailed off, leaving the room in that suspended space where words have no authority. I aligned the folder again, spine flush to the table. Every movement deliberate. Rituals keep men steady when chaos asks for a reaction. Outside the window, the city kept moving. Cars, sunlight, life. Inside, we sat still, surrounded by evidence and air too thin for pretending. I looked up finally, not to punish, but to close the distance between illusion and fact. The numbers told the story. I was just the one reading it aloud. I looked at my watch. Notary in 18 minutes, I said. Her head jerked up. You can't just... I'm not just, I said. I'm done. The words didn't rise, didn't echo. They just landed. Flat, certain, permanent. The clock on the wall ticked once, then again. Each second felt like it was carrying something out of the room, whatever was left of excuses, of maybes, of delay. She stared at the folder, her eyes following the slow twitch of the second hand. We can talk about this, she tried, voice thinning, desperate to stretch time past the point it would break. I didn't answer. 18 minutes. 17. I watched the hand crawl, mechanical and merciless. My breathing matched it, steady, measured, the kind of rhythm you keep when you've already survived the hard part. She looked at me like she was waiting for a pause in my resolve. There wasn't one. The fluorescent light hummed above us, the kind of sound you only notice when everything else has stopped. Neither of us moved. The air conditioner kicked on, a low sigh cutting through the silence, then faded again. When the minute hand reached the mark, it clicked. Soft. Final. We both heard it. Neither spoke. 5 seconds of stillness stretched longer than any argument we'd ever had. That was the moment I knew it was over, not because I walked away, but because I didn't have to. The deadline wasn't coming. It had already arrived. I slid the last page across the desk, the paper gliding smooth under my hand. The stamp in red sat in the corner like a wound already healed. Filed, county clerk. She stared at it, eyes wide, color draining fast. You already? I met her gaze. I filed last week. The words were quiet, almost gentle. No emphasis, no drama, just truth delivered in its simplest form. Her lips trembled, forming a question she couldn't finish. The sound that escaped wasn't a word. It was the small gasp people make when the world finally catches up to them. I didn't move, didn't flinch. The room didn't need volume. The silence shifted, not exploding, but dropping, like a stone finding the bottom after a long fall. She sank into the chair opposite me, shoulders folding in. The light from the window hit the edge of the red stamp, glowing faintly. Proof of closure. All those nights rehearsing what I'd say, all those hours building composure brick by brick, they led to this, a single sheet of paper doing what words never could. I gathered the remaining pages, stacked them neatly, pressed my palm to the top as if sealing a deal with myself. You wanted space, I said softly. Now you have it. Her eyes flicked toward the folder, then away. No shouting, no begging, no wreckage. Just a quiet shift in gravity. Everything rearranging into its new, irreversible place. When I stood, the chair didn't scrape. Some endings don't crash. They land. I pulled the final document forward. Proposed settlement. The words sat heavy at the top of the page, official but almost merciful. This isn't about winning, I said quietly. It's about fair. The sentence held weight. Not pride, not resentment. Just an even tone sharpened by months of silence. Her eyes flicked to mine, confused, like she couldn't find the fight she came prepared for. I slid the pen across the desk, slow, deliberate, letting it stop just in front of her hand. You don't have to sign, I said. You just can. I didn't push, didn't plead, just opened the door she'd already walked halfway through. She stared at the page, at the numbers, the divisions, the cold precision of what used to be ours. Her fingers trembled, grazing the pen without taking it. "It's fair," I repeated, softer this time, not as a justification, but as a benediction. The words stayed in the air longer than any accusation ever had. It outlasted every sorry, every why, every "you never listened." Fair. A word simple enough to close a war. She finally looked up, eyes glassy but focused. There was no hate left in them, just the quiet recognition that equality was the most painful mercy I could offer. I leaned back, folded my hands, waited. Fair isn't peace. It's balance. And sometimes that's harder to live with. She broke first. "You're punishing me with silence." "No," I said, voice steady. "I'm protecting what's left of me." Her lips tightened. She wanted volume, sparks, something loud enough to make guilt sound like love. But the room stayed still. The air conditioner hummed again, slow and even, the white noise of detachment. She shifted forward. "You can't just shut me out, Ethan. You think you're better than me because you're calm? Calm isn't superiority. It's self-preservation." "I think," I said, "you mistake peace for pride." Her eyes flashed with the kind of frustration only denial can afford. She wanted me to rise, to argue, to shout so she could leave feeling equal. But I didn't give her that gift. I looked down at the document again. Lines, signatures, clean logic. It made more sense than we ever did. Outside the door, the security guard walked by, glanced in, then kept going. He saw two people in a room, not war, not heartbreak, just silence wearing suits. She exhaled hard, hoping it would pull me in. It didn't. The truth is, some arguments aren't worth entering because they're scripted to fail. She came rehearsed for chaos. I came prepared for closure. I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't join the scene she'd built in her head. That's how you end a cycle, by refusing to act in the play someone else wrote for you. Her voice cracked once more. "You really don't care, do you?" I looked up, calm, final. "I care enough not to perform." I reached into the briefcase and pulled out a single folded sheet of paper, worn at the edges from being opened too many times and never read aloud. I placed it gently on top of the folder between us. "I wrote this at 2 a.m., I said. I didn't send it. Her brows knit together. She looked at the letter like it might bite. I didn't open it, didn't slide it toward her. Just let it sit there, its silence speaking for me. There's a version of love that doesn't beg to be understood. It just wants to be seen one last time, steady and unarmed. That's what this letter was. Not confession, not plea. Just a relic of a man who still believed honesty could save something already drowned. I watched her eyes drift to it again, searching for permission to unfold it. I didn't give it. Some words are written only to purge the noise from your own head. She finally asked, "What does it say?" I shrugged lightly. "It says everything I'm better off not repeating." She didn't touch it. She just stared, knowing the weight wasn't in the ink, but in the restraint it represented. That letter wasn't love. It was what comes after love, the kind that doesn't chase or demand, only releases. In that moment, I realized affection doesn't die when it goes quiet. It matures. The most grown-up thing I'd ever done for her was not sending that message. She kept her eyes on the letter, maybe waiting for another explosion that would make sense of my calm. It didn't come. "Stillness," I said finally, my voice low but certain, "is a strategy." She flinched like I'd broken some unspoken rule, that men were supposed to rage, to beg, to prove they cared by losing control, but not this time. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm not forgiving either. I'm just done measuring pain by volume." Her lips parted, then closed again. The absence of noise became a language of its own. I didn't accuse her, didn't bargain for closure, didn't insult her to make the silence louder. I just sat there, hands folded, breathing evenly. Somewhere along the line, I'd stopped needing to win. What I wanted now was something simpler, dignity that didn't depend on who stayed or left. Masculinity isn't sharp when it's real. It's steady. It's control without cruelty, boundaries without bitterness. She blinked fast, fighting tears I didn't recognize anymore. Once I would have comforted her. Today I just let the emotion pass between us like wind between two walls, present but untouchable. "You've changed," she said finally. I nodded. "No," I said softly. "I just stopped performing." Outside, the office hum went on. Printers, distant chatter, the clock marking a world that didn't pause for heartbreak. Inside, stillness sat between us, stronger than any argument, louder than any plea. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's evolution. For a long time she stared at the papers, then at me, like trying to read a language she once spoke but forgot. I broke the silence first, slow, deliberate. "Maybe I was always a stranger you never saw." The words didn't rise. They dropped, heavy, final. She inhaled sharply, the kind of breath you take when your reflection stops matching your memory. Her eyes flickered, scanning the floor as if looking for something she'd lost years ago and just realized it was never hers to begin with. A whole shared life sat between us, full of breakfasts, birthdays, plans, none of it feeling real anymore. I could almost see the outline of absence like a ghost sitting in the empty chair next to her. Once I would have tried to fill that silence, to fix, to soothe, to reassure. Now I understood. Some gaps aren't meant to be bridged. They're boundaries drawn by truth. I didn't comfort her. I didn't move closer. I just sat where I was, present but unreachable. The word stranger hung there, echoing softly off the walls, settling somewhere between us, too true to take back, too late to deny. She looked up like she wanted to argue, then didn't. That, more than anything, told me she finally understood. It wasn't cruelty, it was closure. Some people leave long before they pack. All I did was notice. When the silence grew still again, I reached into my pocket and placed the spare key on the table. It caught the light for a moment, then lay flat. Simple metal, nothing sentimental left in it. Her eyes went to my hand, tracing the empty space where a ring used to sit. No gold, no indent, just skin healed over. I didn't explain. I didn't owe her a speech. The gesture said enough. The key rested between us, its purpose expired. It wasn't anger, it was housekeeping. A final act of order. She stared at it, maybe waiting for me to change my mind, to take it back, to play one last familiar scene. But I didn't move. The air conditioner kicked on again, pushing a faint draft across the desk. The key shifted just enough to tap the wood. Clink. That sound, sharp, clear, absolute, cut through the quiet like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had gone on too long. Neither of us reached for it, neither needed to. Her hands folded. Mine didn't. In that small metallic sound, everything we had reduced itself to truth. Something once shared, now properly returned, not broken, just finished. I leaned back slightly, the echo of that single clink still hanging in the air. No apology, no victory, just the clean sound of something ending exactly when it should. We stepped out into the hallway. The sound of our footsteps didn't match anymore, hers uncertain, mine steady. At the end of the corridor, the elevator waited, doors polished to a thin mirror sheen. I caught our reflections as we stood there. I was sharp, defined. She was softer, blurred around the edges, like a photograph left in the sun too long. For a moment, we both just stared. Two outlines of something that used to fit. No words left to say, no anger left to fuel. Just the mechanical hum of the elevator approaching, the small flicker of numbers above the door counting down our shared seconds. When it arrived, the doors slid open with their usual polite tone, a sound that didn't care about context. She stepped in first. I stayed outside, hands in my pockets. The doors began to close, our reflections narrowing in that strip of glass between metal panels. There we were, one last frame, her outline fading, mine holding still. And then, ding. The sound was clean, final. The reflection split, the mirror sealed. That soft metallic note stitched the story shut, like the last echo in a hallway that no longer belonged to either of us. I turned away, the fluorescent lights catching the faint smudge of her perfume as the air swallowed it. Motifs complete, circle closed. Behind me, the elevator carried her down. Ahead, the office waited. Quiet, glass, order. I sat back at my desk after she left. The room had changed shape somehow. Same furniture, same hum, but more space between everything. The air conditioner breathed evenly, the sound of systems doing their job. Stability. I liked that. I opened my calendar. Notary appointment. Completed. A simple line, but it felt monumental. The clock said 5:30. The building was thinning out, the usual chatter fading into distance. My phone buzzed once. Paul. Beer? I stared at it for a second, thumb hovering, then typed back, another night. Not because I was sad, because I wasn't ready to fill the silence yet. Loneliness used to feel like absence. Now it felt like space. Clean, measurable, mine. I pulled a notepad from the drawer, wrote 3 words in the center of the page. Order over chaos. The pen left a deep groove in the paper, like carving something permanent out of something fragile. This wasn't isolation. It was reclamation. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the soft hum around me. Every sound was exactly where it belonged. Outside, the city moved on without noticing me. Inside, for the first time, I didn't mind. Some men chase peace. Others learn to design it. Tonight, solitude wasn't punishment. It was proof I'd survived. I got home just after sunset. The street was quiet, porch lights blinking on one by one like small acts of mercy. When I turned the key, the door opened to stillness. No echo of heels on hardwood. No TV hum leaking from another room. Just air. I switched on the kitchen light. Everything stood where I left it, precise, unbothered. The curtains still carried a trace of her perfume, faint and ghost-like. It lingered, but it no longer stung. I walked over and opened the window. The night air slipped in, cool and honest. Within seconds, the scent faded into the dark. Gone, but not chased, just released. The sink was empty, the counters dry. The house didn't demand anything from me anymore. It wasn't waiting for her, or for me to fix something invisible. It was just a space again. I stood there, hand on the window frame, breathing in the ordinary smell of nothing. Soap, wood, air, the kind of nothing that means peace. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was living in the aftermath of something. I was just living. The refrigerator hummed quietly, a steady heartbeat for a house that had stopped mourning. The thought came uninvited, but true enough to say out loud. The house didn't hurt anymore, I whispered. It felt clean. And it did. Clean, not empty, not cold, just honest. I turned off the light and let the quiet stand. Morning came soft, unhurried. The light through the blinds felt new, not forgiving, just neutral. I walked to the shelf by the fireplace where our pictures used to live like trophies of a life that once worked. Frames in neat rows, dust soft on the glass. One by one, I took them down. Not angry, not sentimental, just ready. The photo from our wedding, smiles too bright to last. The one from the first house, paint still wet behind us. The last one from a vacation that already felt like goodbye. I stacked them carefully in a small box. Didn't rip them, didn't burn them. Those are gestures for people still trying to prove something. On the lid, I wrote 5 words in black ink. History, not a verdict. Because that's what it was. Our story. Not evidence, not failure, just a record of 2 people who tried until they couldn't. I placed the box on the top shelf, high enough to stay out of reach but not out of memory. Then I turned off the living room light. The click echoed soft in the still air. No final music, no montage, just the gentle sound of closure taking its rightful seat. As I stood in the doorway, I looked once more at the empty shelf, the quiet room, the open path ahead. History was boxed, yes, but the future, finally, wasn't. I didn't scream. I redesigned. That's the part no one tells you. Revenge isn't about wreckage. It's about rebuilding, one measured decision at a time. Silence wasn't my punishment. It was my perimeter. My calm was the line that chaos couldn't cross anymore. I didn't win against her. I won against disorder, the kind that eats you from the inside when you mistake noise for connection. The house stands quiet now. My work hums steady. The mirror doesn't flinch when I look into it. Some men fight to prove they're alive. I learned to breathe like a man who's already survived. Revenge isn't noise, it's order. It's stacking your life back together so neatly that even grief runs out of places to hide. If you've ever rebuilt in silence, if you've ever swallowed the urge to shout just to stay whole, then you already know. Say it once, wherever you are. I did. Let it sit in the air. Not loud, not proud, just true. Because peace doesn't roar. It clicks into place, one quiet piece at a time, until your life finally sounds like what it always should have. Steady. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's earned. And that's the real victory.